Big Conversations, Little Bar, with your hosts Randy Florence and Patrick Evans, featuring candid conversations with the Coachella Valley's most interesting and influential people. Pull up a bar stool and enjoy Big Conversations, Little Bar.
Welcome to another edition of Big Conversations, Little Bar. I'm Patrick Evans, and I'm joined by my trusty co-host, the gentleman who thought of this crazy idea in the first place, Randy Florence.
Good afternoon, Patrick.
It is great to be here at Little Bar, our unofficial sponsor, but also host.
And the center of the Coachella Valley universe.
It's what Skip keeps telling us, and we believe it. Since we're taking up his biggest table, we have to say that.
We should.
This is always a lot of fun, and Randy and I, we kind of banty about different names to bring in as guests, and usually the people we really want to get will just tell us no, but obviously today's guest doesn't know us well enough to turn us down.
No, right. We're pretty much guaranteeing there won't be a second one.
Oh, no. I think he's going to become he might be our third co-host. He's going to enjoy this experience that much.
I like that. Well, let's introduce our guest.
By all means.
Let me introduce this podcast to John Bolton, Senior Vice President with the Oakview Group. John, welcome.
Glad to be here, especially at Little
here.
Bar, one of my faves.
This is definitely my fave, and this has been my favorite booth the whole time. So,
now, for the folks who don't know, the Oakview Group, of course, it's all about the Acrisure Arena here,
of course,
in the desert. And some people have likened the arena, saying that it's the biggest thing to happen to the Valley since Frank Sinatra, which I think is pretty high praise. It's kind of a big deal, this arena.
It's a really big deal, and we're going to talk about that because I have a feeling it's going to drastically change the landscape of this valley in the future.
Well, thank you.
In a number of different ways.
Well, I think it really already has, and I think I'll tell you this. When the idea first popped up and we were reporting on it on KESQ, I would hear the stories, and I know originally they were going to put it in downtown Palm Springs, and that seemed like a terrible idea. But I just thought this is one of those projects that gets a lot of talk, and it'll be the buzz for a little while. It's never going to happen. And then all of a sudden, you drive down the 10, you pass the Classic Club, and there's this big hole, and they start building this arena, and boom, here it is. And it's made already very quickly an indelible mark, bringing in, first of all, of course, having our own hockey team that people rally around, but then just all of the other events that an arena of that size opens up, it really has changed the entertainment landscape in the Coachella Valley. And so, John, it's really fun to have you on because obviously you've been instrumental in that and helping to make it come to fruition. And so I'm kind of curious, with this new venue,
Yep.
It's had a great beginning. What does its future look like? Where do we go from here with the Acrisure?
Well, I think we certainly build on the successes that we've had to date. We're growing our database. We're getting to know people who are here seasonally so that we can connect with them year-round, which I think is really important. And, we really just want to continue delivering great shows and great events and, elevating the hockey team and making sure that they're continuing to be successful and, just attract as many cool events as we can year-round.
So I want to talk to you about that because obviously Oakview Group, you guys have arenas like this in lots of different markets. But are any of them as seasonal as the Coachella Valley?
That's a good question. Nothing immediately comes to mind, especially from our owned and operated side. It's definitely, this is a unique, venue for us. And that's why we're, really focused on, trying to, build our database and make sure that we can communicate with everybody when they are not here because we know they'll be coming back next year. And so when shows go on sale, it's really important to have that contact there. The good news is, we have concerts throughout the entire summer. We've got stuff, Memorial Day, Labor Day, weekend. We're testing everything that we can to see how far we can push to do as many events during that off season as possible.
Well, I certainly feel like we are a year-round market, but obviously a seasonal market as well. But in the 20 years that I've lived here, there was, when I first moved here, you could fire a cannon down Palm Canyon Drive in August and never hit anybody and not a car, and the cops wouldn't even come. It's different now. But by the same token, you've got an arena that seats 10, 11,000 people, and that gets harder to fill here in the summer. So
and it's we focused really hard on really trying to attract and claim Riverside County as kind of our home base, because that's 2.5 million people who call Riverside County home. So if we can find a way to get everyone in Riverside County engaged, that is a ton enough people to have a very successful year-round venue. And, that's what we've been focused on, and we'll continue to do so as we continue to have more events.
And the population of what we refer to as the snowbirds, the people from the Northwest and Canada, they've really helped us with the success of this hockey team, haven't they?
Oh, my gosh. I don't think we would have a hockey team in the desert without that support, because, they're tremendous hockey fans, grew up with hockey, grew up ice skating. That was natural for them from pretty much, 2 or 3 years old. So having those core group of people who are really into hockey, not only from Canada, but, the Northwest and, all the way over to, Chicago, all those people grew up with hockey. So it just, I don't think we could do it without them.
Well, I think the Firebirds did a really brilliant job of pre-marketing and getting involved with the YMCA and doing street hockey events with kids, because they stepped in prior to the puck being dropped for the first game and really introduced people who may not have had very much exposure to hockey, and really kind of got them invested and made them stakeholders in this team that was coming to town. And I think that was really brilliant. I know it was a well-conceived plan, but it was well executed.
Well, it's been really exciting to, introduce street hockey to everybody before we opened, and to really, focus on doing street hockey in every one of the cities in the Valley, and not just, east side or west side, but really trying to delve deep and find as many kids and families to be introduced to street hockey as possible, and knowing that, the Burger Foundation Iceplex would be opening soon once we opened, and just, giving a good entree for people to understand what was coming next.
The stuff that you have brought into the arena already, we were talking earlier offline, a couple of years before the arena, there were people coming into town. I think we were a couple of months away from seeing Snoop Dogg at an old Sam's Club in La Quinta at one point. That was going to be the big entertainment center.
Sorry I missed that.
Yeah. Well, it didn't happen. That Sam's Club is still empty. But my point is that we heard a lot of these things coming into town, and all of a sudden this arena is here. And Harry Styles is performing here on his birthday and ending his tour. Looking in the paper this morning and looking at the list of venues that KISS is finishing off their career with, and seeing Acrisure Arena on there, that's pretty cool, John. How does that make you feel?
It's tremendously rewarding to see everything, come into place, because obviously, I moved here a little over 3 years ago, and so it's been a long process, but definitely a quick build, so to speak. So to finally have the building open in December, and the 30 plus major events we've had since then, and the 300,000 plus tickets we've sold just in this short period of time, I think really gives us a lot of hope for the future. And having great shows like KISS and others is cool, because what everybody has to understand is this area was not a tour stop on any tour. We might have had shows at Coachella or Stagecoach, but Palm Desert, California was never on the Lizzo routing or KISS or whatever. It's great to see that happening, and people embracing the venue and the market, and us establishing ourselves as a tour stop.
Oh, and that was really key. Obviously, the number of seats you provide is the key to getting those kinds of acts. I was lucky enough to be at the Eagles concert, which was incredible. They had performed here before at the Indian Wells Tennis Garden,
for sure,
but that was kind of a one-off thing. It wasn't part of a tour per se. This was a special kind of grand opening concert that they wanted to be a part of. But what is it, the magic number in terms of attracting that kind of group?
Well, I mean, the great news is the way the building was designed. It was really designed, obviously, for every seat to be a good seat first, but secondly, to be pretty much 90% of our seats are in the lower bowl. So to really be able to push the P1 pricing on tickets to be able to get the grosses high enough to attract the level of talent like the Eagles. And so that was we were very cognizant of the numbers that we needed to have to make that work, but at the same time create a really intimate environment for music and concerts and events. And I think, we found that middle road, so to speak. And the great news is that, with the roof structure that we have, from a weight perspective, we can accommodate any tour that's touring anytime, anywhere. So that's the great news about where we are, and then being able to push P1 pricing when we have to get the grosses high enough to attract that level of talent.
All right, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on it, but that's very interesting. It's not just the number of seats available, but it is at what price point.
Exactly.
And so the lower bowl seating section, that's big. It's instrumental in how you price those tickets.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And it makes sense as you walk into the arena.
I just learned a lot about his business in the first 3 minutes. This is good stuff.
Well, Skip described the arena as the bottom half of the Staples Center.
Yes.
And I think that's just a fantastic description of it.
Yeah, we looked at the Forum a lot when we were looking at this building and trying to create that kind of nice environment that was really one level. And I think, being able to walk in at ground level and then go down to your seat, it's a really great feeling. And, the 700 or 150 seats that we have upstairs that are club seats, are fantastic. And you look at, at the back of the bowl, you're like, oh my God, this is the worst seat in the house. And they're amazing. It's like the mezzanine in a theater. It's truly amazing.
I've been lucky enough to be at a few hockey games with Randy and a couple of different shows. And it's true, there are no bad seats in that.
The bourbon bar seats are amazing.
Once you've had a couple of Garrison Brother bourbons, you might think the Eagles are playing, but it's still the hockey team.
People love those two spaces.
They do.
Garrison Brothers and the Locker Tequila.
Obviously, you've been intimately involved in the construction of this particular arena, and you've been here, as you said, 3+ years. But you also serve as VP of the entire Oakview group. So talk a little bit about kind of your duties there and how you work throughout the Oakview group, kind of organizing all of these different arenas and the different acts and the things that you all do.
Yeah, so
and maybe talk about the recent restructure of the organization too.
Yeah,
John.
so obviously, my background for 16 years worked for SMG, which was kind of the competitor to OVG. SMG merged with AEG facilities to create ASM Global, and that's the company I worked for before I came here. And in my prior job, I was, I'd gone through and obviously opened arenas and been GMs of arenas, but in the last 5 years before I came to work for OVG, was the vice president of entertainment. So I worked to push talent to all of our arenas, stadiums, and theaters. And so when I came on board with Oakview Group, it was a similar type role, plus doing this project here. And now that we have, this facility open, my duties are still home-based here, working with Acrisure Arena, but also working on projects to really help grow the company. And obviously, we are a very fast-growing company, as you know, and Tim Lewicki, our founder and CEO, obviously has done a tremendous job in growing the facility and just being able to, the example of building this arena in 18 months in the state of California, I think is indicative of the overall, impression that people have of Oakview Group. I mean, things happen really fast, and once, Tim decides he wants to do something, it happens. And so it's been incredible for me to be a part of that journey the last, 3.5 years. And obviously, living in the Coachella Valley is something that I thoroughly enjoy, and have enjoyed, getting to know people here in the desert. And, it's been a wonderful experience for me personally and professionally. And so, I'm hopeful that we'll continue to have success not only here, but, all over the world.
How many arenas do you guys operate?
It's we acquired a company called Spectra back in November. So the numbers are in the 300s of facilities that we work with on management, but also food and beverage as well. So
are they all of similar size?
No, they're all over the place, and all different kinds of venues, from theaters to convention centers to stadiums to arenas. We have the Arena Alliance. We have a theater alliance of different venues as well. So, the amount of kind of overall feelings that and imprints that we have on all of the venues throughout North America and all over the world is truly tremendous to have occurred in this short amount of time that since Tim and Irving founded the company.
So, John, you left your previous position, came to Oakview. How does that happen? You see an ad in the paper?
Well,
do they have papers anymore?
So it's a fun story. I had opened the BOK Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a beautiful 19,000 seat venue, and Jeff Nickler, who was my assistant GM, he'd worked his way up to become a GM, and then when I left to go to work for SMG in the corporate office, he became the GM, and then a couple of years later, Irving reached out and asked would he consider running the Arena Alliance for OVG, and so he did. And about 6 months to a year into that, Jeff said, "Hey, I think it would be great for you to meet Francesca Bodie, who is president of business development." And so I was out for a conference here in LA, next to us, I guess, in LA. And, we had breakfast, and less than 2 weeks later, I was having drinks with Tim and Steve Collins in New York. I was living in Philadelphia at the time. And, the deal was done that afternoon. And so started, looking to put my house for sale in Philadelphia and, trying to find something here. And, by Thanksgiving, it was all done.
Had you been here before? Did you know the Valley?
Yeah, I did. Obviously being in the entertainment business, spending a lot of time in LA, and when I was in Tulsa, I actually had a condo here over by the convention center on Avenida Caballeros. And so was very familiar with the market, had been here a lot. And then when I moved to Philadelphia full-time, ended up selling the condo here, but obviously, knew a great deal about the Valley and had been to, events and been to Stagecoach and the McCallum and all that during the time, when we would come out. So
I imagine a lot of your industry and maybe some of your competitors might not have thought it was the wisest idea to build an arena in the Coachella Valley. What are they saying now?
Well, I think they're still learning about it. Obviously, it happened very fast. But the shows that we've had, the success that we've had, they've really, really taken notice. And I have to really give credit to Tim because if you remember, we originally were looking at Palm Springs, and then COVID hit and things kind of became very, very difficult. And it would have been so easy for Tim and Oakview just to walk away and not do this project. But, not only did he double down on, this arena, but all the others as well. We didn't lay anyone off during that time period. We hired more people, we continued to build. And so we really, when everybody else was kind of asleep at the wheel, we were going, 90 miles an hour during that time. So, it set us up to be really successful coming out of COVID. And, that's where we are today.
It's really remarkable to think about. You're building entertainment venues during a pandemic where all entertainment venues are closed.
Yes.
You are investing heavily in something that you, at that moment, could not open if it was finished.
And you're hoping you're going to be able to at some point.
Yeah. So that's really quite prescient. That's pretty good foresight.
It's pretty amazing. And I kept, kind of praying to myself that by the time we open, I hope we don't have to do masks. Because so many of my counterparts were opening back up and, having to do masks, and every tour was being rescheduled. And, it was a kind of a patchwork of what people were doing in all different parts of the country. And so for some time there, I kind of felt pretty lucky to be in the process of building an arena versus managing one at that time, because it was very difficult. And so many things changed, and tours would cancel, and somebody would get sick, and then we can't play there because of X, Y, and Z, and we can't open. It was a mess.
So obviously, you guys have been around now for a little while. The arena's open. You've gone through a little bit of a restructure at the organization. Talk to me a little bit about that, what the purpose was, and where you see yourself coming out of that.
Yeah. So the great news is that the arena and the team are pretty much have the same ownership. So we've tried to kind of make the organizations kind of be one. And so we certainly had some overlap in certain departments and things where the arena and the team, and some were doing the same type of work, but just one was for the team and one was for the arena. So giving us that opportunity to kind of do a little bit of putting those things back kind of together as one organization, because the ownership ended up being the same. I think is really why we really looked at doing that.
Where do you see the next iteration of the arena? What should we be looking for in terms of excitement in the future?
Well, I think, obviously continuing to build upon the success we've had and attracting more events.
And the ownership of the arena helps us with that,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely. But, I hope to, be able to announce some, NBA exhibition game, NHL exhibition game, hopefully some NCAA basketball.
I think some announcements on a podcast would be pretty important, don't you?
Anytime you have that sort of announcement, you should make it right here.
Because our listener in Riverside would be really interested.
This is where Big Conversations happen. It's right in the title.
So I think it's trying to tie into a lot of the existing things that happen in the Valley, utilizing the parking lot, and also the tremendous land that we have, around the facility. Obviously we are big fans of the Berger Foundation and are very supportive of their efforts to try to develop the rest of the property that's around us. They've been amazing partners, and love them both personally and professionally. And I feel like that's where a lot of the future will be for that particular area, because there's so much land to be developed, and it's such a great location, Mid-Valley, right on I-10, 180,000 cars a day passing by our beautiful big marquees, announcing all of our events. So, I feel like that's kind of where you'll see a lot of kind of cool things happen in the future.
Do I have it right that you graduated with a degree in health from the University of Alabama?
I did graduate from the University of Alabama with a degree in healthcare management.
Healthcare management.
Yes.
Well,
so
that's obviously moved you into arena management.
Yeah, so it's an interesting story. So,
and by the way, congratulations on Alabama today.
Yes,
they won their first game.
Yes, they did. That was good, and there's been some upsets today. So,
yes, my alma mater. Yeah, thank you. The University of Virginia, always a reliable loss in the first round.
So
I was looking forward to UVA meeting Alabama. So that will happen now.
Regarding college, so I went to University of Alabama on a kind of leadership scholarship, and there were 40 of us. And during my freshman year, we kind of participated in all these kind of leadership seminars and all this kind of stuff. And then at the end of our freshman year, we all got kind of placed in leadership roles on campus. And for some crazy reason, I became in charge of the Fine Arts series of university programs, which was the organization on campus that did events. And so my sophomore year, I put together a series of events that we promoted as students, and the National Association of Campus Activities picked the series that we did as best in the nation. So all of a sudden, I had this, amazing platform and experience of doing events and really, enjoying it and loving it, and then continued to do that. And then my senior year was president of the whole organization. And at that time, it was pretty unique in the amount of money that we had to promote events and concerts and lectures and films and comedians and all these kind of things. So by the time, my senior year rolled around, I had been doing events and marketing and, producing stuff, and it just seemed really natural. But how I kind of got my first job was I was selling tickets at the University of Alabama, and at that time, there wasn't Ticketmaster or Access Ticketing. It was hard tickets, if you remember those days.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was trying to sell, a ticket to an event with 3 different prices, a student price, a faculty price, and then a general admission price. And you can imagine 3 stubs on one ticket was very confusing for people at the bookstore trying to make that stuff work. So there was a company in Birmingham that I reached out to called Fastix, and I said, hey, will you help sell tickets to my events? And they were like, yeah, we'd love to do that. And they came on campus, and we started doing our events, selling them computerized.
And you're doing this as a student?
As a student, yes. And then luckily for them and for me, the University of Alabama football kind of picked them up to sell a couple of thousands, kind of tickets to football games that, weren't particularly popular, or, no one
wanted to go to those games.
Yes. Some
University of
not
Virginia.
Not the LSUs of the world, but, some of those other schools. And so once I graduated, they kind of offered me a job doing that. And because the owner of the company had been the manager of the Charlie Daniels Band and promoted a lot of shows and stuff, we kind of took the work that I had done doing kind of Broadway stuff and those kind of shows, and started promoting Broadway shows at the same time. I was running our phone room, all of our outlets, and really going to every event and settling that night. It wasn't like we do today where, the money's wire transferred and all of that. I physically had to be there at every event. And
you were counting it out?
Yes, write the check, and, here you go, and now we can settle the show and all that. So,
wow.
It was a great experience for me as a kid, just being exposed to that many events on an early basis, and being, it was a lot of work. Obviously, it was every night at some venue, but it was a lot of fun. And then the company actually sold to a company that would become eventually Ticketmaster, and I then went to work for a private management company, kind of like OVG in Indiana, as director of marketing for an arena. And arena and an amphitheater at that time. So it was two different venues. And then jumped from there to become the GM of a theater complex in Kentucky, which was kind of a unique experience. I'd had experience, doing shows and stuff, but never really running a theater complex, and it was brand new right on the Ohio River. It was home of the International Bluegrass Music Association and the Bluegrass Music Museum. And as a kid from Alabama, you tried to avoid that type of music. You didn't want to be associated with anything like that. So it was kind of unique to be involved in that, and it really grew on me. And, that's where I discovered, people like Alison Krauss, and, just loved. It was just a unique experience that, I never would have, even known where that part of the country was. But it just so happened that when I went to interview at the arena, the lady who was the GM of the building was from Pensacola, Florida. I grew up, just north of there. The assistant GM was from Mississippi. So it just kind of felt like home. And, so that's kind of how the career kind of started, but really just totally by accident.
So at that point, your health career was over.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
before it ever began.
Yes.
Before it ever began.
Well, that's
Yes.
that's interesting, because obviously you kind of fell in love with doing the work as a student, but it was just almost a hobby, really.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was awesome because, like you would take a human resource management class, and then you would have a group of people that you were kind of managing, doing events and things like that. So it was kind of a great way to kind of, immediately kind of be kind of on site and doing internship of what we were doing. And so much of our business is kind of what you learn when you really get in the door, because back in those days there weren't really a lot of specific programs for sports management or venue management or things like that. So just getting that experience was really the key, and then getting to know people, because once you get your foot in the door, so to speak, you can kind of go from there.
How many people are there really in this country who do what you do?
There's several thousand.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. The International Association of Venue Managers has thousands of folks like myself who are involved. And if you think about it, each venue, has 30, 40, 50 full-time people. So, there are a lot of venues.
John, one of the things that we did when we put this podcast together is our original idea was to talk to people about music and music that might have meant something in their life. We've morphed a little bit off of that, but I still find that an interesting topic. Are there songs in your life that you could point back to and say, yeah, that meant something to me?
I think about early on, my parents, they were big into Elvis. I was born in 1967, so some of his last, songs there were in the early 1970s.
Right.
So I remember some of those days, my parents would go see, Elvis, and I remember that. But I also, kind of corny, I remember the Johnny Mathis Christmas album and, the Anne Murray and all that kind of stuff as well. But what I found throughout my career is that, running a venue, you kind of, it's not so much about what you like. It's kind of doing what other people like and trying to understand, what people really want to see and who they want to hear. Because, you take the example of, this Saturday night is Grupo Arriesgado at the Acrisure Arena. I mean, honestly, I had never heard of this group. So, we're constantly learning. You're constantly, hearing new music. And I think that's what's joyful about the business that I do is that, I get to exposed to so many different things that I wouldn't be if I was just a normal person, listening to the radio or getting involved in live music. And that's what, going to the college days was so exciting for me because we did so many different things. Like, we had President Carter and Ford and all these people speaking and, all these films and, Jacques Cousteau and all these kind of crazy things that I never would have seen or, been able to experience. But because of being in the event business, I was exposed to that. And I feel like I'm certainly a better person for it. But I learned early on that, it's not so much what I like. And if I try to force and do events that only I like, I won't be successful.
Yeah, you've got to cater to the audience that's out there.
Right.
But is there a moment, obviously growing up, you had your favorites. And then you get into event management and you're doing these things and booking concerts. Was there a moment where I grew up listening to X and now I've booked them at my arena? Was there that kind of...
Yeah, I mean, I remember Paul McCartney the first time. And, you kind of grow up listening to that music. But then when you hear it live for the first time, it's just very emotional. And you think, oh my God, wow, that is the most beautiful song I've ever heard. Or, a great band like the Eagles, and hearing them live and just, knowing the Hotel California album, every song was a hit.
Yeah.
That's just, it's so amazing to be able to get to experience that. There are a lot of, obviously I didn't get to see Elvis. I didn't get to see Queen. In its, original, so I didn't get to see the Bee Gees when they were, so there's certain things that I remember missing that I wished I would have seen, but, certainly have had, a great blessing to see a lot of great shows.
You've been kind of responsible for booking thousands and thousands and thousands of shows over your career. Any stories you can share with us about particular bookings or acts where I just didn't know till the day it came together that it was coming together?
Well, it's kind of weird. I was thinking about that the other day. We were doing, when I was right out of college, and I was promoting some Broadway shows in about 13 or 14 markets. I remember doing Annie at this theater in Minneapolis, and, there was a part where there was a TV or a movie part where it's part of the show, and we've got the equipment in the back, and somehow the equipment, falls and it goes in the seat in front of and hits this little girl, and we have to stop the show and all this kind of stuff. And it was just like and people wanted their money back, and the sound didn't work very well after that. I mean, it was just like one of those kind of crazy things that kind of happened. But that was kind of one of those kind of weird experiences early on in my career. But I've been pretty fortunate not to have anything major in a negative standpoint happen. But we're always cognizant of things happening like that. But so
was there a big show that you got that you weren't sure you were ever going to be able to?
Well, I can tell you, like opening the BOK Center in Tulsa, it was we had to work really, really hard to convince Irving to do the Eagles there.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
That seems like
That's very
an easy
surprising.
sell.
Yeah.
Well, it was kind of like here. I mean, it wasn't really a market. So people were kind of, well, can you sell 19,000 seats in Tulsa, Oklahoma? And luckily, while Celine Dion wasn't our first show there, it was the first show that we announced and put on sale. And all of a sudden, it sold out. And then people were like, oh, well, maybe that could be a market. So, it's kind of like that here. When new markets, new buildings, it takes a moment for the building to breathe and to really gain its sea legs, so to speak, and be able to be successful. And but, yeah, I mean, those are kind of those, amazing opportunities. And then being able to we ended up doing, 2 shows of the Eagles, and then we ended up doing 2 shows of Paul McCartney in Tulsa, which was great. So those kind of things are cool. And then, during my work with SMG, being involved in a lot of, stadium shows and things like that was really, really awesome to be a part of, the Rolling Stones and those kind of things as well.
I'm sure it's impossible to pick, but if you had to name like the top 3 shows that you were really glad you were not just a part of, but got to see and enjoy.
Well, definitely, Paul McCartney, definitely. I'm a huge fan of Celine Dion. I just, I'm just devastated over her, her illness and, the troubles that she's having. And hopefully one day we'll get to see her live again. But, I think back to things that have really, like, personally, affected me in a very positive way. But like listening to like Alison Krauss and just the other night, seeing Bonnie Raitt again. Like I remember seeing Linda Ronstadt and the Neville brothers and Aaron Neville together and thinking, oh my God, this is just amazing.
It's not going to ever be any better than this.
Yeah. So you have those kind of experiences and like Chris Stapleton, I saw him at the Greek Theater for the first time, and then the first time he played out here at Coachella, and just thinking, my God, this guy could just sing the phone book and I'd be happy. Just those kind of experiences are really, really awesome and cool.
You've lived a lot of different places, obviously. Kind of compare and contrast, because the Coachella Valley is kind of an animal unto itself. We do have great access to L.A., and if you want to go and do that, it's easy to do that and get to the beaches. But you were in Philly before here, and Philly, I was just there last summer. It's got a whole different vibe.
Yeah, so, I like more of the small town feel of places. I guess that probably has a lot to do of where I grew up in, L.A., Lower Alabama, so I love just being a part of the relaxed environment that we have here, and people being just, I think, genuine. And what I love about this area is that there are a lot of people who are retired or have retired early, retired late, and so it becomes more about you as a person versus you and what job you have. And that's one of the cool things that I really enjoy about it, because so much of our lives are, all based around, oh, well, what does he do? Does he run this company? Does he do that? But here it just becomes about who you are as a person. And I really enjoy that, because you get to know people personally, not so much professionally. And, people are not 100% defined by the job that they have. And that's been a cool and unique thing for me to realize of living out here versus in other places.
I think that's a lot of the reason why we see a lot of celebrities and such coming into the Valley, because they know they can walk around, they can be left alone, and they can just be who they want to be.
Right.
We had to start this podcast because Randy had to have something to do.
I did, yeah.
And because his wife specifically needed him out of the house.
Yeah, she was not very happy when I retired for a number of reasons. The arena has now been up and running for a whole, 3 months now?
Pretty much, yes.
What looking back now, is there anything that you think you need to upgrade or change or improve now that you've had the shows and almost a full hockey season?
That's a great question. I think we want to continue to look at the food offerings that we have and continue.
Which, by the way, are really good.
Well, thank you.
I had a fish sandwich last night.
We love involving local folks in what we do. I love the partnership with Shaquille O'Neal. I love the partnership with Giada on the Italian side. I love Fisherman's Market being in there. I love promoting Brandini. So I hope that we can continue to improve upon that.
I know a guy with an Italian sausage company.
The fact that you are promoting, I'll get back to that in a moment. The fact that you are promoting local businesses, I think, is so cool in there. And a sausage company called Fulvio is a local company.
It's local, yeah. I run it out of my house.
Well, that's another
very
podcast.
Local.
Yeah, I can't, say much, but not mention BuzzBox as well.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's exciting for them to get involved with us, to be involved in a lot of our other arenas.
And what
as
they've
well.
done, it's just since they came into the Valley, is phenomenal.
So excited for that company to continue to grow and to be successful. And, they're just a great group of people who work really, really hard. And, their bars are our number one places in the arena. So, it's great to have them as a partner here, but open the door to other OBG venues as well.
You talked about arenas kind of develop their own personality and life cycle and everything, and of course this arena is. And after that first night where people had some complaints about parking and driving and everything like that, it seems like everything has settled down pretty tremendously. Is there any discussion about what we might be able to do to help improve the rideshare situation in the arena, which I think is something everybody would like to be able to do?
Yeah, so, I mean, the answer there is simple. We have easy in and out for rideshare. It's just getting more people to participate and become involved in rideshare and go to work for Uber and Lyft, because that's been the key for a long time. We reached out on all the taxi companies as well, and trying to get them to service where we are. But hopefully, us being year-round encourages more participation in those programs, because that's the way, we can grow. I mean, we certainly have the infrastructure and want people to use rideshare as much as possible. But it just becomes, sometimes difficult to get, people to pick up after the event. And I noticed it immediately, living in Palm Springs, living close to the airport, and even like trying to get an Uber to the airport or from the airport, sometimes was very, very difficult. And so, hopefully over time, us being year-round, that will get more people, working for Uber and Lyft to, be able to service that.
There seems to be, when there is a demand for that, the people who drive for Uber and Lyft tend to kind of follow the demand. Mm-hmm. And I think as you guys continue to grow and there's a need for people to be driving at 11 o'clock to get people home, you're going to see more of those people coming online. I think it might take a little while, but that seems to be a natural progression.
I've seen it improve since we opened, and I just hope that, after the season, so to speak, goes away, that people still are active in doing that and the business is there for them.
Any opportunity to get Sunline more involved over at the arena?
We've talked to them. It seems like a pretty difficult, long process. Because our hours are irregular. There's no real stops that are made there, and it just I think both of us would love to see something happen. But, just talking to them, it just seems like there's got to be more development around us for it to make sense.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
10 years from now, in your vision, what would you like to see around the arena?
Well, I would definitely love to see hotels and restaurants, and hopefully some other attractions, whether that be water-related or not, there. Hopefully some, housing, whether that be, condos or houses or whatever that might be. I think that would be great. Apartments, that kind of a mixed-use development, I think would be very, very great for where we are.
Well, traditionally in the Valley, it's been tougher to grow communities north of the freeway for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
But to have an anchor like the arena, it's a no-brainer that, you're going to see those. I'm sure there are already great plans for some terrific restaurant venues right there, because people want to have those dining options before the shows and before the hockey games that you don't provide on site.
Right.
So that will happen naturally. But then that mixed use is seeing housing opportunities come along. Obviously, coming out of the pandemic, when growth was very slow here in the Valley and everywhere, it'll change, and I think it'll change pretty quickly. But you guys have positioned yourselves really well to encourage that growth around the arena itself, which in Mid-Valley, in that location, I was never a fan of the idea of putting it in downtown Palm Springs. I think this, however it worked out,
right,
the circumstances that put you guys there, that's a very serendipitous thing because it's in a very good spot.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it really has helped us with events, but also the team as well, into really creating, a place that everyone feels like they have easy access to. And being Mid-Valley is really, really great for us, and the exposure on I-10 is really, really helpful.
Visibility from people driving from LA to Arizona and vice versa. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
I have had so many people say, hey, I just saw a new building off of 10. What was that? That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and with the project in Palm Springs, there wasn't even a marquee because we were so, tight right there next to the casino. And so it really opens up, I think, and gives us a lot of promotion ability that we didn't have in the original location.
So, John, hopefully 24/7 isn't just running an arena. What do you do in the Valley to have a good time?
Well, for the last 6 or 8 months, it's kind of been a fog, to be honest with you. So I'm looking forward to a vacation here soon. So, but other than that, we enjoy, going to a lot of events, doing stuff. We're huge tennis fans. I just pinch myself to know that I live here and can just pull right up and walk right in and see, the best tennis in the world. I love that. We love Modernism Week in Palm Springs. We love the film festival. We love going to. It was funny to me because I obviously lived here for 3 years before the arena opened, and we were so busy all the time going to stuff, doing events, doing things, and in my mind, it was even hard for me to get around. What would another 120 event nights mean for not only us, but the rest of the Valley as well? And so, you just add to what we're already doing. And, you take, Saturday night, for example. We're going to have a sold-out concert at the same time. They're having record numbers at the tennis event at the BNP. So, it just tells me that, multiple things can be successful at the same time, which is really encouraging to me. And knowing that there's hockey going on at the same time as a tournament, and that's doing well. So I think it paints a positive picture for the future. But obviously I've become familiar with pickleball, although I'm not a pro at it as others are. But certainly noticed that. But I think it's just more of socializing and meeting people and, going and just taking advantage of all of the things that are around us and not being isolated to the place that you live, and really trying to get out and experience, what's cool in all 9 cities versus just the one that you live in.
Yeah, I agree. What do you want us to know about the arena coming up?
What's the big show that you can't tell us about?
Hopefully, it will be announced here soon. I was hoping it would be this week. Would be a big show that
we can announce it here if you'd like, John.
Well, it's
our listener would like to hear.
I might get kicked down the street if I did that, but a lot of cool things, and I can't underestimate the effect of Harry Styles playing the building. Obviously, just that happening was really, really huge for us because you're really establishing a brand.
It was huge for the Valley, John.
Yeah. I'm just...
Do you know how hard I had to work to keep my 2 teenage daughters from knowing about that?
You had just gotten them tickets to the Snoop Dogg show at Sam's Club.
Yeah. I know. And, the other thing, too, I'd throw in is, we're excited. We made a significant donation to the Plaza Theater Capital campaign.
And thank you for that. That was amazing. $1 million?
Yes, $1 million. And, I have to say that, even before I took the job, Mayor Moon had given Tim a tour of the Plaza Theater and said, hey, we're trying to restore this project and you guys need to be involved. And I remember Tim saying, even it was either the week of or the week before, saying, once you get on the ground, you need to find out everything about that, and we need to find a way for us to help them restore that theater. And then, Todd Lewicki, who is Tim's brother and also CEO of the Seattle Kraken, has a home in Palm Springs, and he has become really, really excited about the project and is over there almost every other week with a different group of people touring. And, we've been able to involve a lot of people from Seattle into the project. So, we're excited about, helping them raise the money to restore that theater because, every experience that people have with live music, live events, helps everyone. It gets people like just going to Bonnie Raitt the other night and seeing that, pretty much sold out, knowing that those people had a great experience, they love live music, and that's good for everybody because they continue to go when you enjoy, going out and doing stuff, and that's what we're all about. And so having, small places, large places, medium places doing shows and events, I think is good for all of us.
Well, I think I really love to hear that because you guys could be just the 800-pound gorilla in the room, but you're not. You're working with all of these other smaller venues because the rising tide raises all the boats.
Yeah.
And you've become a part of the community.
Well, thank you.
In a very short amount of time.
Yeah, and I enjoy, talking to Mitch at the McCallum and, knowing that, they're successful and, having great events. And, before we opened and I wasn't working all the time on the evenings, enjoy going to a lot of events there as well. So it's just great to see, everybody being successful because the more people and the more, habits that we can create of people going out and doing, live music, seeing live music, live events is good for all of us.
Well, John, we're hoping we can get you on here again in the future because there's going to be a lot more news coming in. Again, I want to just congratulate you and the team on how quickly you've assimilated into this valley and the benefit that you've brought. A lot of people come into the town and it takes them a good 10 or 15 years to kind of get their feet dug in. You guys did it quickly and you did it right. So congratulations on that, and thanks for what you've brought to the valley.
Well, thank you so much, and thanks to you personally for being a part of that because your work with Palm Desert was really helpful to us, and we had a lot of conversations a year or two ago about, hey, can we get these restaurants to open later now that we're going to be open? This 8 o'clock closing at the these restaurants. I mean, my goodness, this is crazy. So hopefully, we're making some progress.
Well,
there.
you're having to teach the community. There's different hours than we've been living all our lives.
We don't all have to eat before an event. We can eat after as well.
It's a learning curve, but it will happen. But you're bringing great events, and you've been a great community partner.
Well, thank you.
It's a terrific addition to the Valley.
Thank you. We love doing it, and just feel excited to be a part of it and excited about the future.
Well, we appreciate you being a part of Big Conversations Little Bar, and the seat is always open when you want to come back.
Well, thank you. Thanks for doing this.
John Bolton, thanks for being here. Thanks to our producer and engineer, John McMullen, my partner, Patrick Evans.
Randy, always a pleasure.
It is.
You found yet another excuse for us to hang out at Little Bar for
And
another
have a
couple of
drink.
hours.
You're welcome, Skip.
Where is Skip?
He's hiding.
He's
here.
watching tennis.
That's right.
Thanks for listening to Big Conversations Little Bar. Join Randy and Patrick next time as we keep the conversation going right here on Big Conversations Little Bar.